Food additives are chemicals deliberately added to foods to produce a desired technological effect. These substances help change a food's color, viscosity, or microbial load, making it safe to consume for a longer period of time. Additives have been used in food since the ancient times, with efforts made to preserve, color, or improve the texture and appearance of food. The ancient Egyptians, the Greeks, and the Romans used salt to preserve meat and fish, considering that the salting process helps extract the water from food and thus prevents microbial growth. Vinegar was used by the Romans to marinate vegetables and meats and to act as an acidic preservative. Finally, beet extracts, saffron, and turmeric have been used as dyes to give foods a more appetizing look. In recent times, natural or synthetic chemicals are deliberately added to food with the aim of producing a technological effect. In this case, the chemical added becomes an integral part of the food and is called a food additive. For example, sorbic acid is used as a preservative in baked goods and in certain cheeses to slow or stop the growth of fungi and yeasts, helping to prevent food from becoming prematurely moldy. Sulfur dioxide is another food additive that can be used as an antioxidant and also as a preservative in wines and dried fruits. It works by delaying the growth of certain molds and bacteria, but also by preventing oxidative browning of certain dried fruits or juices. Soy lecithin or xanthan gum can be added to foods as an emulsifier to make two liquids that are usually not miscible homogeneous, and as a thickener in sauces, dressings, mayonnaises, or certain beverages. When a chemical is added to food, no matter how innocuous it may be, the risk profile of the food can be considered as changing. This is why most food regulatory agencies around the world require that before a food additive can be approved, its use must be studied and verified before it can be authorized. They require in particular that a food producer who wishes to have a new use of a substance as a food additive submit data which justify the technological effect, so as not to have additions of chemicals in food without utility, and which demonstrate that the food additive use does not pose a risk to the health of consumers. The information submitted is subjected to a comprehensive scientific assessment, including all studies submitted and their supporting data. In doing so, these food regulatory agencies follow the example of the food standards body known as the Codex Alimentarius and its advisory committees. Created and managed by the World Health Organization, WHO, and the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO. One of these advisory committees is dedicated to the risk assessment of food additives, of contaminants in food, and of residues of veterinary drugs in food. This committee is called JECFA, or Joint Expert Committee on Food Additives.
JECFA is a FAO-WHO joint program. It consists on two panels. One panel administered by WHO and another administered by FAO. And when we meet together, we have JECFA. So we have different tasks for this committee. WHO is mainly responsible for analyzing the toxicological profile and end up with the ADI when it is relevant to provide ADA, acceptable daily intake. And FAO working on the specification, on analytical tools, and the exposure assessment, it's a shared task between WHO and FAO.
World-leading scientific experts are called upon to conduct comprehensive assessments of the safety of the chemical or the substance intended to be added and used under the condition of use as a food additive.
So we are working together as one committee to provide independent scientific advice. So independent, when we say independent scientific advice, that means that we are relying on experts coming from different parts of the world. The experts are nominated by the two Director General of WHO from for the panel, we call it Food Safety Panel. They are nominated for 4 years by our Director General, and the same thing for the panel of FAO. So we select them. We select them because they are the best experts internationally, and because they declare their interests. And we look at the declaration of interests, and if there is any conflict of interest, we can exclude them from the committee or accept them for the committee, because we can consider that not all interests cannot be manageable. So if you can manage the possible conflict of interest, we keep them. I give you one single example. If, for example, we have one expert coming from FDA, US FDA, and if this expert was responsible of evaluation of one substance, he cannot be the main expert, the expert to the same substance. So this is what is not real conflict of interests, but to make the process independent is very important to do it in this way.
A clearly established methodology is followed in accordance with set guidelines that are agreed upon internationally.
And we need to have sound scientific advice. So we rely on the experts. People are very important. Second, we rely on our procedures or our SOPs, how to conduct the risk assessment. So how to conduct the risk assessment, we have the ECH 240, is the guidance on how to do safety or risk assessment for chemicals. So we try to use the same methodology. The third criteria is data. Data is very important. So data is provided by the sponsor through the countries, through association of industry. And data can come from countries mainly for exposure assessment, the consumption data, the use, and so on. So the output and the quality of output will depend on those three components. Industry, they collect the available data. Some of them, they own some of those data because they pay for some experimentation. But we look at them carefully in objective way and look at their quality. But we don't rely only on the data provided by the industry, because in parallel, JECFA, we are looking to all the published data about the subject. So combining all together, we cannot say we rely only on industrial data, but we look at all the available data in the scientific literature. However, when it comes to the new compounds, we are in a situation where almost all the data is coming from the industry. And to counter that, the industry, if they provide data or if they commission studies, they are not done by the industry themselves. The work is commissioned to known laboratory. They work with certain norms, OECD, good laboratory practices, and so on. So it is not a matter who is paying for the data, but the main matter how the study was conducted, and we are always looking at the quality of the data.
These comprehensive international assessments conducted by expert committees serve as the basis for the development of food standards issued by the International Food Standard Setting Body, or the Codex Alimentarius Commission. Codex has issued and regularly updates what is known as the General Standard for Food Additives, or the JECFA. This text sets out the international requirements for substances used as food additives by specifying the types of permitted food additives, their conditions of use, including the maximum permitted limits for each substance in each food, and the categories of foods in which these additives may be used. The promulgation of this standard and its regular updates helps ensure food safety and the facilitation of trade for food commodities, where food additive applications may be used, by trying to harmonize food regulatory provisions related to food additives globally. This rigorous approach offers guidance to various food regulatory agencies around the world, which follow it or adapt it to their needs. The backbone of the approval of any food additive application is a thorough and rigorous scientific assessment based on data and evidence and following agreed-upon risk assessment methodologies. An additive can only be authorized when the scientific assessment concludes to the assurance of its safety under its intended condition of use, as well as to the relevance of the technological justification for this intended use. While the same methodology is generally followed by food regulators, it is possible that the decisions related to food additive uses may be different between countries for reasons that can be explained. The justification of use may be different, depending on the conditions of production in a given country or region. The amount of food consumed by a given population may vary depending on the national or regional dietary patterns. In these rare situations, we may witness different conditions of use approved by food regulators than those listed in the Codex JECFA. Following the same rigorous science-based approach, it is also possible for Codex, followed by food regulators around the world, to decide to rescind a food additive approval. This can be justified by either a possible increased risk for that food additive application indicating that safety is no longer supported, or if the food additive use is rendered unnecessary given the change in food production practices. With science at the core of these food regulatory decisions, food regulators work together to continuously monitor the scientific information generated around the world and to assess the relevance and impact of new research and data on the safety of food additives. This approach allows to maintain and uphold a food regulatory regime where decisions are anchored in science and are non-arbitrary, supported by a comprehensive risk assessment, relying on the latest scientific information. The common goal is to ensure and maintain a high level of protection to consumers' health wherever they are around the world, while allowing for the development of innovations in food applications, food products, and food processes. Safe and effective food additive applications contribute to a diverse food supply that meets consumers' needs and interests. These applications also support more sustainable production practices by reducing food loss and waste, thereby helping to ease the burden on our limited natural resources.